If this is the same Jaron Boots Ennis that we see go up against Terence Crawford is going to knock him out. Let's say that right now. Terence Crawford is going to knock out Jaron Boots Ennis. I'm telling you, it's going to happen. Because we're looking at what we saw with Boots. There's too many legitimate holes inside of his defensive arsenal that he can get countered all night long. Based off of this fight, he takes too many chances and relies on what he can take rather on what he can do. He relies not on being sound in all fronts. He relies on more so his athletic talent, his chin, and his outright physical dominance that he can impose on any opponent. He's one of the most athletically gifted opponents in the world. It's very few that can make that brother think, because he can, just with athleticism, can outdo most people. We get it. And his skills are no joke even with that. His respect is due, but his talent and his ability, while all warranted and real, something's going to be wrong when you're going up against a near perfect fighter, like with Terence Crawford. Boots is going to get knocked out. He's got too many opportunities. He will get caught and potentially get dropped and be faced off against Terence Crawford. The attention to the little things is something that Crawford always does against every opponent. And if you got to bring yourself to do that against other opponents, you're not going to be able to beat somebody who that is their routine. Always dots their I's and crosses their T's. That is what we see Terence Crawford do on a night-to-night basis. And with Boots, like I said, he still showed, hey, I can fight in multiple different ranges. He got a knockdown while fighting off the ropes, as being the person being pressured, not the one doing the pressuring. But it's the fact that you let yourself get to that point instead of outright negating what David wanted to do and making it so that this fight was completely and utterly in your control. That's what I saw with Terence Crawford. I did not see that when I watched Boots fight David. A completely different fight in terms of what each fighter showed. One showed dedication to the small stuff. The other one showed dedication to their athleticism and their outright gifts. Now, we've seen others rely on their gifts as boxers. Roy Jones Jr., one of the most gifted, arguably the most gifted athlete we had ever seen in the history of boxing. But even with that, whatever I said, he still did the small stuff, though he relied on his athleticism first and foremost. It was always backed up by this small stuff. Remember when I compared Roy Jones Jr. to Naoya Inoue in terms of how they're two sides of the same coin? With Boots, there's a similar cloth in terms of, oh, this brother's an athletic freak of nature. It's something different about him, but it's not nearly as backed by the technical understanding, or rather the technical nuance that we see with other great fighters. Again, like Terence Crawford. And this is not disrespect. No, this is just calling what we see. Crawford controlled everything that night. And Boots, while he was in control, he still relinquished it to some degree. He didn't do the right stuff to take away the momentum that was coming from David. Crawford made it seem like it was a walk in the park when he fought against David. And while his offensive display was even more destructive, what he sacrificed for that showed me that if he goes and fights against somebody like Terence Crawford, he is going to get knocked out because he doesn't pay attention to the small stuff in boxing. And with Boots, as great as he is, and he is great, he still is a problem to himself because he won't keep the technical nuances sharp. Terence Crawford will whoop you, beat you up, counter you just like he countered Spence, methodically catch you up until he gets exactly what he wants and then gets you out of there. You can't rely on your chin. You can't rely on your athleticism. You can't rely on just your body and your skills to be able to win. You got to have the technical aspects down. If you don't, you will get ran over. Crawford has skills and technique. Boots has skills, but not nearly as much technique as is required on both ends of the boxing spectrum, offense and defense, to be able to compete, or rather to be able to beat somebody like Terence Crawford. When it comes to Boots versus Crawford, we now can conclude Crawford is stronger, Crawford is more technically better, Crawford is smarter, and Crawford is better at controlling the fight than Boots. On top of when it comes to defensively, Crawford will not make the mistakes of being lax or willingly letting himself get put in a position that he doesn't want to be in. But when you're going up against somebody like Crawford as your main antagonist, the ultimate goal that you're looking for, I don't think he's going to be able to win. On top of the fact that with those mistakes against somebody like Crawford, who's got that level of power, there's no way you're going to be able to survive. You'll get caught. As great as your chin is, as great as your reflexes are, even against David Ebenezer, your reflexes didn't save you from the amount of hard shots that got landed on you in succession, not just once in a blue moon around. You mean to tell me that if Crawford pops your head up like we saw David Ebenezer do, Crawford gets you to the ropes and is allowed to work like we saw David Ebenezer do, Crawford's able to counter you with hooks like we saw David do, you're not winning that battle. You're not winning that fight. Spence couldn't win that fight. And we saw Spence as one of the greatest bone-crushing fighters that we had in the division. If this is the performance we have to go on, as great and entertaining as it was, Boots is going to get knocked out by Terence Crawford. There is no way I can see Boots, as much of an athletic savant that he is and a skillful, great boxer. Yes, he is. What's missing and the problems in this game are something that is going to eat him alive going up against one of the best in the world that takes advantage of every single opportunity. There is no wasted movement. There is no wasted time. There is no point of lackadaisicalness when it comes to Terence Crawford. You take that same mentality, you're going to get put to sleep. The willingness to rely on his chin and his athleticism more so than what he needs to do with doing the right stuff technically. Unlike what we see with Terence Crawford on a night-to-night basis, just like we saw with David Ebenezer, just like we saw against Errol Spence Jr., just like we're most likely going to see against Madrimov, this is going to be another display when they do fight, because they will fight. Unless Boots gets it together, we're going to see Crawford knock him out. We're going to see him beat him.